Welcome back to 4IR Interviews. Super excited to be here with Carrie Lomas. She's going to introduce herself, but we're going to be talking about customer experience with one of the experts in that area. Carrie, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Please tell us all about you.
So I've been interested in technology since I was very young.
Yep.
Been very lucky that my father bought new tech when it came out. Started coding at 12, 13, and that led to what I chose to do for education and a career at 26 years at Intel and IBM.
Wow.
And I've always been interested in technology for how it can improve outcomes. So whatever it can do for you that's better, not techie just for techie's sake. I also had the privilege of going to Oxford to do my postgrad in strategy and innovation. Which if you've not done any education like that, I can highly recommend it. It's amazing the people that you're with, as well as the professors. And I learnt a lot from a different perspective. And when you're with clients tell you stuff, but there's always an edge because they're trying to do something with you. When you're with people from different industries in an educational environment, what you're doing is sharing knowledge really openly, and what you can gather from other people and their journeys through the world was a phenomenal experience.
Fantastic.
And that shaped a lot of my next stage of my career with Internet of Things and artificial intelligence and technologies like RPA, thinking about how you can use these technologies in different industries across the world.
Great, thank you. Pleasure once again. Let's jump into the fourth industrial revolution. There is so much disruption out there right now. There's technology coming out of left, right and centre, startups entering, taking a little bit of market share. What does the fourth industrial revolution mean to you, and how are you adapting to be part of that revolution?
I think I've been really lucky because I've always worked in the technical area. When I said I worked for Intel, people think about PCs, but actually almost my entire career was spent in what was called embedded technology, so anything that's not a PC. So it might be technology for healthcare, it might be technology in the industrial world, or one of my favourites is retail, the retail environment. When you think about how much data we're producing and how much data that without even thinking about it is, surrounds us daily. It's how can you actually use that to make a difference? So the fourth industrial revolution really is about what do we have today and how does that change in any of those industries. And businesses find it really difficult to chunk up their business because there's overlaps all over the place. So we tend to do it by industry. If you think about that from a personal perspective, when I get in my car in the morning to go to the train station, I don't think of myself as being in the automotive industry this second, and then being in transport, and then being in retail when I go to the shop.
Yeah, food and beverage, whatever.
That's not the way that you're thinking. What you're thinking about is your journey through the day, a day in the life of.
Yeah.
So I think part of the way that we have to think and what we have to do differently, our expectations are so high, ours will be, let alone the generation beneath us, and there's an age range between us. But no, my
Thank
thoughts.
you.
We're closer. We're the same age, I think.
Maybe.
So our expectations and my 14-year-old son's expectations are completely different. And to adapt to that, what we have to be able to do is be agile. And I don't just mean that in a software development sense, but I really mean in what we do. And I think it's really important we use what's around us. We think about how we're going to use the information to make a better experience for us during that day in the life of.
With the experience that you've had with numerous industries and companies, large and small, that you've worked with, how have you seen companies react to this change? Because it's very different to how they've always done things, right? What do you feel? What's your experience been with companies adopting this?
So one of the most important books in my life is Geoffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm, because you will always get early adopters, innovators first and then early adopters. And then you've got to cross this chasm, which actually is sort of in the middle of or towards the end of the early adopters. And so some people will go first. The really difficult thing about the mainstream users for technology and the companies that have got to change in what they're doing is they want to know how it's being done and they want the proof of the evidence, and actually the early adopters don't need to share that because they're quite happy doing it. So I think that you'll always get that span of people that are there, ready to go, how can we use this so that instead of being disrupted, we are disrupting ourselves. taking advantage, and there's others that will wait and see how technology plays out.
I mean, my experience has been from, because I've been looking to fourth industrial revolution for almost 2 years now, and it's been very interesting to see different perspectives. But the biggest thing that I've personally seen is larger companies are still trying to identify the first steps, where smaller companies who are able to, or startups, are able to just go in with those, adopt those technologies, actually apply that. Do you see a similar trend with different industries that you work with?
I think industry to industry is different as well. Industries like financial services tend to go very quickly. So they'll put money into it and they can figure out very quickly how to do it. There are other industries where the margins are smaller, like retail, that really do need to see what the returns are going to be before they do it. But again, it comes back to that, the early adopters and how they're working. Of course, small companies can make decisions to move really quickly, and I think it depends whether they're developing things for customers or whether they are customers themselves for that. And their challenge is then the funding. So they would have to have the funding to be able to do that, which large companies typically have. I think not just in the UK but across the world, there's lots of innovation funds to help companies with that as well. And I think that's a great leveler, and software's a great leveler because anyone really can have an amazing team that can code.
Fantastic. Thank you. So we're back here for our interviews with Carrie Lomas, our consumer experience expert. Carrie, what is the consumer experience all about to you?
For me, it's that everything you do, everything you touch, everything that you experience should be great. Why not? Why can't it be? I don't care if that's going to the doctor or going to buy something or my journey to the supermarket. So for whatever you do in life, it's how do you look at that and how do you actually improve on that. And 4IR has the ability to make all of those things better because we can understand people better from their choices. And there's a lot of concern about being tracked on Alexa, on what we look at on the internet, every experience that we have on a daily basis. But if you are happy to sign up to something, I would be happy to say these 3 brands can track all my data. So I'm quite happy for those 2. This one not so much. It might pop in there now and again, but it's typically because there's a specific thing. And that data can then be used to actually just blow me out the water with a customer experience. And a great example is John Lewis at a time when the high street is just falling over itself, really struggling to keep alive. They've opened a brand new store in Cheltenham, and what they've done is made it about the customer experience. Now, you're possibly not going to join in with this one, but to bring you into the store, they've done things like they've got a blow dry area, because there are a lot of people who want to go in and look good. I believe you can have a beard trimmed if you go in there. And if you're just going out on
I tried both.
You try both. No, you're going out on a hot day, or you're going to an interview, or you're going to be filmed, and you think to yourself, I'd really like that. Like somebody professional to do that. And then when you're in the store, the chances are you might see something you're going to buy, grab a coffee. That's all about the customer experience. Now, if we send you a voucher onto your phone, because we don't need paper vouchers anymore, and we know what it is that's going to entice you in, the more we understand about you, the better we can make that experience from you, whoever we may be. So my train journey, knowing where I get the train from and to, which is terribly boring, it's nearly always Kemble to London, Paddington. But if they knew and understand that and figured out I go up 3 times a week, then they could very easily, and actually I quite like my little pot of Wolfie's porridge on the train, particularly if I have to catch a train, there's a 5 still on the clock. But that kind of thing, the more you know about somebody, the more that you can offer them something that's of value to them. So the customer experience should really be about frictionless value to the consumer.
So convenience overtakes privacy.
But that's a choice that you make, right?
Exactly.
And that's where it's really difficult, because I think we've given away so much of our data. That how do you bring that back in, and how do you only share that with people that you want to? I think that's a real challenge we've got coming up in the next couple of years.
Yeah, you bet. Good, thank you. So, in the era of fourth industrial revolution, how do companies bring better customer experience?
So I happen to have a great example here. So Lego, a great company. I had the privilege when I was at Intel of working with Lego. And what they've done, and this box is a great example of that, not just because it's STEM and women in STEM, But they put a shout out and said, if you have some Lego that we've not made that you'd like us to make, then create it, show us it, put it on the website, and then people vote. So customers vote for which Lego they'd like. And it gets to a certain voting level, and then it goes forward to, you know, kind of a bigger competition. And then the Lego toy board effectively say yes or no to this. So people are now involved, customers themselves are involved in what Lego they'd like to see. I mean, what a great way to do it. From a process perspective, one of the more recent things that's been honed is enterprise design thinking. And that's really thinking about things from a user's perspective. Again, frictionless, how do you take away the pain, how do you make something, some process, so that it is actually enjoyable, not just frictionless, but you know, positively enjoyable. So by using processes like enterprise design thinking, where you really are looking at the big picture of what's going on, but it's a very creative process, you can really change what that customer experience is like of whatever that journey is.
And how do you extend that way of thinking across the ecosystem? Because there's some great ideas out in the OEMs that are bringing into industry. How do we encourage that collaboration when there's sensitivity over privacy, intellectual property, etc.?
So I think there's some great collaborations out there. One of the ones that I particularly enjoyed was I went up to one that was run by the government, and it was all about flooding.
Yeah.
And so they brought together the water companies, they brought together the local councils, they brought together individuals who, you know, were struggling because they were being flooded. They brought together small companies that had IoT sensors, and they looked at how do we solve the problem collectively together. And then you have to go through the business modelling. Who's going to get the money? Who could use this? Who's going to sell that bit of data? Who's going to own it? And it is really complex. So you have to get your big girl pants on and really sit and think about how that's going to work.
Yeah.
And you all have to be prepared to give and get, and you have to work in an environment that we're not necessarily used to working in. You know, forget your pointy elbows. Actually, what you have to do is think about how you're going to work together and share out the money.
Yeah.
And it should be based on the value that you bring.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Solving holistic problems. Yeah.
And I think when people start collaborating, it's always mutually beneficial for everybody involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We're back here with the 4IR interviews. Carrie Lomas, our customer experience expert. Let's jump in with the first question, which is, there is a roadmap, there is ingredients, there are recipes to change. I'd love to understand better what you see are some of the fundamentals to making those changes.
I think it's a great question, and we all change for different reasons and at different rates. I quite like John Cotter's model. One of the biggest things is creating an environment where there's an urgency, people really see the need to change. And Nish, you talked to me previously about that kind of, you know, what is it that creates that? And how do people go about doing that? And I think that if you understand that if you carry on, you're just going to carry on like this, or your company dies, because if you don't change, everybody else is changing around you, and the world is changing around you, which you have no control over. The way to do that is to get people within your company to see that there's a need to do that, and then take them through what that will mean for them individually. And I think that the John Cotter model is fantastic, so it's a great 8-step process. But there's so much out there on, you know, at the moment, one of the biggest things, the Me Too movement, there's a need to change how we are in the workplace. So lots of companies are out there training people on what's appropriate behaviour and what's not. You know, does it mean you can't be friendly towards people? No. You know, but it means doing that in a way that's respectful.
Yeah.
And if I look at recruitment at the moment, which is something you and I have discussed in the past, Andrew, some women really do need, some people need, to go about it in a different way. It used to be, are you good enough to work at this company? And actually now we've got a lot of choice, and we won't work for a company where we don't like the culture or we don't believe in the product that they're selling.
Yep.
So KPMG is a great example. They ran a women-only careers fair, and it was for everything from apprentices right through to partner level. And it was so inclusive and so friendly and so open, and very much about, you know, what do you have to give, but what could we give you? And that's a real change in how we go about things. And I thought it was a great example.
And how do you get people to actually start adopting this change?
So I think that's fascinating, because culture and, again, individuals will change differently over time. So I think it's both bottoms up and tops down. So tops down have to really say, this is what we believe needs to happen, and here's why, because people have to feel that. Some people will change because they're afraid to be the last one. They don't want to be the last one. Some people want to be the first one. Some people want to know what's in it for them. I don't particularly like that phrase myself. And some people want to do it because it's the right thing to do. Some people would do it because they've been told this is the right thing to do. So there's different reasons why we all will change. So you have to actually touch most of those points. But what you really have to do is get a core of people that want to change. Now, don't go with the difficult ones that don't want to do this. Go with the ones that do and work forward with them. And they'll gather people, and people will see the benefits and move, whether that's adopting a new technology, a new process, a new way of thinking. They will, people bring with you. And communication is absolutely the key to all of it. It's the vascular system for the whole thing.
We all need to change. We need bang flag wavers charging it through the organisation. Agreed. Fantastic.
The other thing is that there's a saying that everybody wants to change, but nobody actually wants to do it. So everybody understands that they do, but it's really, really hard to get it done. So you have to be able to change yourself.
And you need to start small.
Yes, and start small and get going. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Almost don't worry about where you're going to start. It's know that you've got to get going.
Stop doing.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. We're back here with the 4IR interviews with Carrie Lomas. Delighted to see our customer experience expert here.
So Carrie, if you could enable the culture for customer experience, and if you were to start that culture change now in an organization, what would you do?
So I think if I was going to create my own organisation or go into an organisation where I had the opportunity to develop something, there are a couple of things that I'd change. I honestly believe kindness is a superpower. I believe in openness and transparency, whether that's within your team, your organisation, or with your customers. I believe that your number one team is actually your peer group, because that's if you work together really well and collaborate, and you're open and transparent, and you know that there are some things you're trying to drive that are the same, and some things that are slightly different because you've got different roles in the company. If you get that right, then your teams know. You shouldn't be setting teams up against each other. It should be part of how you work together. And in the Richard Branson model, if you get it right with your teams and your people, then they'll get it right with the customers as well. And I think then how you work with your customers becomes so important. If you can't do something or it's really difficult, tell them. Don't let them spend their money on something that you can't do. And if it's the first time you're doing it, tell them. So this is a first, so we're going to put some money in and co-create this with you.
And customer experience is not necessarily just external, but also internal, right? Because how you treat your internal departments and how that information flows through actually then has an open effect on your customers as well.
Absolutely, and I think Richard Branson's got it right. If you do that well internally, then that flows through to how they will believe they need to behave externally. And we touched on the fact that social media allows this ridiculous anonymity, yet there's so much data out there. It will come back and bite us, and how we behave has to change in line with the fact that the world, there's some terrible things going on in the world. There always has been through the history of mankind, humankind. But how we actually then now, with such availability of information about who said what to whom, where and when, we have to start thinking about how we behave. Now, of course, you can make that up as well because it's very easy to Photoshop things, create things that aren't true. So checking facts, thinking about what you say before you say it, thinking about how you behave, I think it's going to become really important. And I think the next generation care an awful lot more about that than I think sometimes it's perceived that they do.
Thank you.